Let's give Uncle Larry a nice, really round of applause. Come on, Uncle Larry. We do have a phone number up top, on top of the slides. You'll see that. Feel free to text in your questions. So if you have a question for Larry, feel free to text in. So we'll do a lot of Q&A today if you have any for that. So first off, whoa, very shaky. It's me, not you.
It was you, yeah. Not me.
I want to thank you for being our keynote. And it's kind of full circle, you know, especially since if it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't be here. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about that point, because I don't think, many times I don't talk about how we started this. But I don't know if you remember this, but it was maybe 6 of us, and I was doing a focus group. And the focus group was, does the Tampa Bay community need something for business owners to get together? And do you remember what you said back then?
No. I don't remember yesterday.
But you remember what came out of it?
Yeah, of course.
So I want to thank you for supporting that vision, because Larry has one of the longest running groups in Tampa Bay. He's been doing a group every Monday night for 17 years. Every holidays, everything, every Monday night. And it was the support that he gave from his group that helped found Tampa Bay Business Owners, him and about 5 other individuals. So if it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't be here today.
Well, thank you. And believe me, it's an honor to be sitting up here, because I appreciate everything Chris has done for so many people. He's got a vision, unlike most people you'll ever meet in your life, and he's able to implement his visions and create things like TBBO. I think he's a remarkable person, so I think he's the one that deserves a big round of applause. Let's give him a big round.
Thank you. So Larry, tonight's about you, and I forgot this, but you have the nickname, The Real Deal, and you said I gave that to you. I don't even remember coming up with that.
You did.
Yeah, back in the day we used to do TV shows, and I used to nickname everybody, so I called them Larry The Real Deal Harbaugh, and I'd love to just dive into your story and then go into it. But can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up, what it was like?
I grew up in a small town in southwest Michigan, town by the name of Gobles, G-O-B-L-E-S, big town. Population 800. Now, in 1960, the population was 800. I checked about a month ago. The population has really exploded. It's 819. I was born into a dairy farm family. My family has been on the same farm since the 1850s. And there's a cocky little snot there in the bottom left. Remember the advertisement with the battery on it? Go ahead and knock it off. That's always been my attitude. Now that I'm old, I don't have it. But that's a picture of one of the farms where we had our dairy operation. In the wintertime, I don't believe in snow anymore, believe me. But that's where I was born and raised. And to me, that's one of the greatest places in the world. I now own those farms. It has come generation to generation. And I'm so honored to have that. I took this picture a while back, just looking across the fields. I worked those fields from the time I was 5 years old. At 7 years old, I was on a tractor seat all day when I wasn't in school, working on those fields. Now, when my oldest son was 16, I wouldn't let him on a tractor. I wouldn't trust him. But it was the natural thing to do. And so I grew up in a good, honest, hardworking, German background family, and everything was about, in the small town, your name and your integrity, because everybody knew your business, and if you didn't do what you agreed, you were mud, and nobody wanted to be that. The town is so small.
How small is it?
Thank you.
Well, that's where I started doing real estate. And I'll tell you, there can't be too many houses in a population of 800 people. But one day, I was having a discussion with someone, And I was telling him how poor I was, and he said, "You're not poor. You got $23,000 in the bank." I said, "Oh, I do not." He was right. I couldn't figure out. Well, small town America, I figured out that my dad's cousin's wife worked in the bank, and she was best friends with this guy's wife. So you couldn't get away with anything in that area. But that's where I come from. I'm honored. Now that my parents are gone, my oldest daughter, she now lives in the farmhouse, and so it's coming full circle. I'm proud to have it.
So Larry, can you talk about, so just to draw into perspective, 7 years old, when kids are playing, you were plowing the fields and you were working.
I was working, but it was the natural thing to do because that's just what you did. We were a family. We worked together. We spent our time together. And it was important because you got to understand, back in the mid-1950s, it wasn't like it is today. But to me, we milked cows twice a day. And so working 7 days a week that's a normal thing. So I grew up with a good work ethic.
So what was your first endeavor in entrepreneurism as a young kid on the farm?
We not only had the dairy cows and 320 acres of ground that I helped farm, but we also had 8 acres of asparagus. Anybody know what asparagus is? It's the most vile thing you could ever think of. But I used to pick the asparagus with my parents in the month of May and the first half of June. Well, I got paid a few pennies for every pound that I picked. I wasn't allowed to spend my money. I had to put it in a jar. I did that for several years, and at that time, I took the money and I bought some sheep because I'm a farm boy. That's the thing to do. So this is my lamb right here. Larry had a little lamb. That lamb followed me like a puppy dog. But I bought those 2 sheep. This is the next generation from those. I raised the sheep. We sheared the sheep. I sold the wool. I bought 3 more. Eventually, I grew that into 14 sheep. And then at that time, I sold the sheep. I took the money and I bought the first dairy cow that I ever had with the money, because that was my contribution to the family dairy herd. And I built that up, and see, I didn't get to play in all the reindeer games like all the rest of the kids. I had obligations. And if we didn't have anything to do on our farm, my dad's cousin owned a sawmill, and my uncle owned 120 acres of blueberries. So if we had nothing to do on our farm, I had to go work for those different family members. So work is a natural thing to me.
So that's the name of that cow is Betsy, right?
Becky.
Oh, Becky. Okay,
Becky.
I got the wrong name. Sorry about that.
I'll never do it again.
Yeah, no, I won't. So now from there, you actually went into being a union pipe fitter. So can you talk about that transition? Because you were a natural entrepreneur as a kid.
Well, my dad had a heart attack, and he didn't want me doing the same thing, having the same problems. So we sold the cows, but we kept the farm. And so at that time is when I got married in 1966 for the first time. And it's a natural thing to have a lot of children on a farm so that eventually I can sit on the front porch in the shade and send the kids out in the field to do the work. But I ended up with 6 kids, and I had to feed those kids. So I got in 1968, I became a plumber apprentice and eventually became a union pipe fitter from that. And I did that for 30 years. That was me back in the days when I was a pretty rough little guy. Wow. Looks just like me today, doesn't it? Except I don't have the mustache and I don't have hair. But yeah, I became a welder. I welded for about 20 years in the nuclear powerhouses around the country as they were being built. and I spent a lot of time welding what was called main steam, which is the piping on the primary loop right down by the reactor. And so I did that. I bounced around the country. After a few years, my first wife didn't think I should be having so much fun, and we parted ways. So then I had a couple of years of happiness. No, my first wife was a great lady. She's a great mother, and she did a great job with the kids. A couple of years later, I met my current wife, and her and I are peas in a pod. She's a great lady. She's such a help to me on everything I've done since we met. And we've been together for a long time. Where did you get that picture?
So Larry, to understand, can you paint a picture of what your life was like in Michigan as a pipe fitter, that kind of life, especially someone that I know that your whole bloodline since 1850 lived on that piece of property or
Right.
surrounding piece of property. Is it correct that no one ever moved out of the surrounding area to go anywhere but that area from
Nobody has ever moved more than 3 miles from the original farm to this day, except for me.
So now, you're like this dreamer, but you're in a place where kind of people they have obligations, and you have to do what the last generation did, and they told you what you have to do next. So, what were the dreams that you had while you were a union pipe fitter? Working in the wintertime on those nuclear reactors and the things that you were doing.
Well, because I traveled around the country, I got to see there was more to the world than the immediate area of that farm. There were some nice things, and I met some people that had nice things. And I always had wanted, for some reason, I was never really satisfied to live the status quo. I always wanted better. I knew I could do better. Something inside of me said, you don't have to settle. You can do anything you put your mind to. Now, my grandmother, when I was 7, said, "Oh, Larry, you can do anything you put your mind to." And I listened to her. See, I didn't know that stuff doesn't work. I just knew Grandma had said it, so I believed it, and she was right. There's nothing you can't accomplish in this world if you set your mind to it. That is what changed my life.
So can you talk about the breaking point, kind of what your life was like when you literally flipped the switch on it?
Well, yeah, I was working at anybody ever heard of the Upjohn Company? Okay, I was working at the Upjohn Company, and I was in their cyanide building, unheated,
Cyanide, the poison.
14th floor.
Okay.
Like I said, no heat, 22 below zero outside, and I'm freezing to death because being a welder, you can't wear enough clothes to stay warm and still work.
Right.
And all the rest of the guys went out for lunch, and I stayed in the break area on a filthy picnic table, and I was reading a golf magazine. And I was looking at the golf magazine. It was a picture of a golf green with 2 men and 2 women in shorts and short sleeve shirts, and they're putting out. And I could feel the warmth on my face, literally, from that picture. And something snapped in my head. I don't know. I was sick of the trade by then. It had been 30 years. And I'd climb all the mountains in the trades that I could climb. And I got up, I went into the boss's office where there was a heater, and I called my wife. And I said, "Hon, we're moving. I'm leaving. I've had enough. I can't take any more." And her response was, "Are you drunk already today?" And I said, "No, I've got to leave. I can't take it anymore." She said, "No, you don't know what you're talking." See, nobody had ever left. So I went home that night. We fought all night. We did not sleep 1 ounce, one minute. And I told her when I left the next morning, I'm going in to work. I'm going to tell them I quit. I didn't retire. I quit. Get my check. When I come home, if you want to go with me, wherever I'm going, have your bags packed and be ready to go. Because I'm leaving one way or the other. Because something up here I'd had enough. And so I went in. I got home about 11:30 that morning. She was ready to go. So I put some antifreeze in the drains, turned the thermostat down to 50, And we got in the car. No destination. I just knew I was going to go somewhere warm.
So literally, you just left everything you knew.
I left.
Wow.
Got on the highway, 75. US 75 comes down from central Michigan. So I got over onto 75, and we just went south. And we got to I-4. And it was getting late, so I got off on I-4. And this is later in the day. Well, that was a big mistake. Anybody remember when it was 2 lanes at rush hour? Well, I'm a farm boy. I'm not used to this traffic. So we were there. I was white knuckling. I was scared to death. And we got into Tampa, and I just took an exit. I had to get out of there. Well, I took an exit, and we drove and drove and drove and drove and ended up in Clearwater Beach. So we stayed 3 weeks. And one day my wife said, "We can't stay forever. What are we going to do?" I said, "I'm going home. I'm selling everything." She said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And I said, "Yeah." So we went back and forth for 2.5 years periodically. We sold our home. We had a convenience store. We had an 8-cabin resort on a lake. And we had a bunch of rental properties. So it took me 2.5 years to sell them. But I came here, and I'd been doing real estate up there for almost 15 years with no training, no education. Well, when I came to Florida, which is now 20 years in January, this is a different world than Michigan and the way they do business. And so I started over. One of my mentors is sitting right here in this room, 4th row back, center aisle, very instrumental in my learning the investment side of the business. Andy Phillips, been a great friend, and truly appreciate you. So
for people that don't know, you're a real estate investor, but you also, we're going to get into where you became a world-renowned educator across the globe, but that's the story right now is you came to Clearwater.
World-renowned, I don't know about that, but...
You're very well known. There are friends that are shaking their heads in that niche. So when you came to Clearwater, I just want to be clear, you stayed here. You would only go up there to sell off assets, but you were here full time.
When there was a closing, we'd go up, do the closing.
Right, so you literally left everything and moved to Florida.
Well, we kept the farms.
Yeah. So can you talk about the mindset? Because I know Mark Ensign had talked about leaving Jersey and coming to Florida. You had a couple of shifts in mindset when you moved to Florida that you put into your head that you never looked back, that kind of changed the way you built relationships and built a community here pretty quickly.
Well, 2 things. The day I left left Michigan, one of the guys that I'd worked with, he grabbed me, put his arm around me, and said, "Come on, Larry, get this out of your head. You're going to go do real estate." He said, "You make more than anybody else you know." Now, in 97, in Michigan, we were making $25 an hour on the check. That's $1,000 for 40 hours. That was big money. Still is in Michigan. But I told him to go to hell, and I left. And he said, "You'll be back." Well, I guess he don't know me very well. Because that was, I ain't going back. I'll make it work one way or another. And as Andy knows, I've made tons and tons of mistakes, but I never gave up. And so because of another one of my mentors, Pete Fortunato, he changed my life because he's got so many friends.
Right, talk about that.
Well, I went to a weekend event that Pete was doing, and he was talking about during the weekend, I did a deal with my friend Andy, and he'd talk about it. And I did a deal with my friend Mike, and he'd talk about it. And coming from Michigan, you know, that you don't tell anybody anything, you don't trust anybody, you keep it a secret. And I thought to myself, literally, boy, this guy's got a lot of friends, sarcastically. But I noticed, even though he's kind of crusty, everybody loved him. And before the weekend was over, I said, well, hell, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. As of right now, everybody's my friend. The damnedest thing happened. everybody is my friend. And I'm one of the luckiest men in Florida because I believe that. And that is a real switch for where I come from. Because I go back to visit, it's still the same. The mindset up there is, I'm so glad I left. I never could have survived up there.
Well, you know, we tried to do a meeting similar to our e-marketing groups in New York City. And they destroyed us on the reviews because they couldn't understand our catch because we were trying to help them. I think Bruce Anderson was there with me. And they were trying to figure out what the scam was. And we said, there is no scam. We just want to do information. It's $10 a head. And they still, months later, we had to stop the meeting because they just didn't understand how other people would want to help other people without a scam being attached. It was kind of ironic. And we had to close the meeting because they couldn't understand our angle. If we had an angle, they would understand the scam. They would probably still show up. But it just didn't correlate with the community we were trying to build.
The first real estate book on investing I ever bought, I paid $19 for, and I showed it to my father. And he said, I'm going to tell you something right now, son. The only person going to make any money from that book is the guy that sold it to you. Because them rich folks are not going to let you in on their secrets. They may use you, they'll chew you up and they'll spit you out, but you're going to lose, they're going to win. Thank God I didn't listen.
Can you talk about Wayne Dyer? That was one of the influences that really helped you with your mindset and kind of the nuggets you were able to take away from his teachings.
Wayne Dyer changed my life. Literally changed my life. Anybody ever heard of Dr. Dyer? Has anybody ever read Power of Intention? I bought the audio book, and I've had it now for 6 or 7 years. It's all 4 CDs are still in my player. I play them over and over. But he's the one that gave me the ability to believe in there's so much opportunity everywhere. And it literally changed my life. And I'm going to tell you, the first time I listened to it, it took every ounce of strength I had to listen to it. It was so foreign to me. Now it's like beautiful violin music when I listen. He was so important.
Why did you start your Monday meetings? Because I would assume someone that was a union pipe fitter is not someone that's accustomed, like in front of a room, now leading your own group. The group that you have is one of the longest running meetings in the state. I know in real estate it's in the country as far as weekly meetings.
Weekly meetings, yeah.
Yeah, a weekly meeting. You do it every Monday.
Well, it's a unique meeting, but I've got some of the nicest, greatest investors in the country that come to that meeting every week. Good, honest, hardworking people. Not scumbags you read about in the newspapers that go out and take advantage of people. I started it because there was another local real estate club who, they didn't care about anybody. They just wanted to pick your pockets. And I think some of us know who that was. And they were ripping off people, and not ripping off, but they had their hand in their pocket. And they upset me one day because they wanted to charge a friend of mine $1,000 and a 3% commission to give them a purchase agreement so they could do a deal on their own. And the person said, gee, I just wanted the paper. And they said, well, go talk to your friend Larry. I'm sure he'll give you one. Well, I did. I didn't get a piece of the action, didn't want it. Well, that made me mad. So I started my group with 4 people. And that 4 people over the weeks grew. At one time, we had about 200 people a week coming to the meeting. Then the market tanked. And lately, we've only been getting 50 or 60. But, you know, in normal times, we get 70, 80, 90 people every week.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And I'm very honored to be part of that.
So can you talk about why you became a speaker to teach real estate information? What kind of compelled you to go that route as a real estate investor?
Well, I'm a student. And I said Andy was very, very instrumental. Andy slapped me around a little bit one night, and he don't remember it, but I sure do. He said, Larry, you would know a good deal if it hit you in the face. I said, yes, I would. He said, you're crazy. No. He said, all right, well, let me give you an example. He said, there's a house for sale. Nice house. Worth $150,000. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Would you be interested in that house? Yeah. Maybe. He said it rents for $1,500 a month. Are you still interested in it? Yeah. He said, well, the seller wants $1 million for it. I said, oh, no, I wouldn't pay that much. And he said, I told you wouldn't know a good deal. And that's where I come up with the idea, I'll give you $1 million for your house if you'll take $20 a month until paid. See, it has nothing to do with doing business the normal way, but we like to deal with the sellers. We like to pay the seller. We don't believe in bank financing. And that was the real lesson that I learned when I came here. But the reason I started teaching was a lady by the name of Barbara Avery. Was an appraiser. She said to me once, Larry, you know a lot, and some of us don't know anything. Would you do like a one-day class and just teach us some basics? Yeah. So I did the class. We had 69 people there. And that was the beginning of my teaching. And then later, somebody asked me to speak at their club about all the mistakes I've made, which I couldn't fit into a 2-hour presentation. And it just started to grow from there. Since then, I've now written 26 3-ring binder manuals on how to buy real estate with no money and no credit, or different ways of doing it that I've done and I've learned from my mentors. And so now I go around speaking all over the country.
And you've been speaking since 2005?
2003.
So your business in the speaking business has grown steadily since, right?
Yeah.
So the market never impacted you?
No, because what we do, the investors that I know, that I teach, the market has nothing to do with it because we're not interested in the bank financing. We can structure a deal with the seller that will allow us to, make the payments. I may give them a higher price if they'll take a lower payment. We don't live by an amortization schedule.
Actually, I was there firsthand when you negotiated a deal just north of Kennedy with another, I think it was like a World War II vet, and you guys sat down and negotiated everything on paper. It was really interesting to watch because he was used to not dealing with banks either.
Right.
From his generation, so it's really interesting.
That's why I like the older crowd, because they understand. They have brains.
Thanks, Larry.
Well, some of the younger crowd, I don't want to name anybody, they just don't have the brains to do a creative deal. I'm just joking.
Oh, I hope so. Okay, so the other cool distinction, this is a cool story. You got into the Library of Congress. How were you? There was some TV work that you did that got archived into Library of Congress. You want to talk about that story? And someone helped you out with that, I think.
You're not going to start crying, are you?
Go ahead.
Well, he and I did 16 shows when he was doing his
So I used to do TV shows on the local air. That's before this. I used to do local TV shows. It looked something like this. This was our Anthony, the guy that you see in the back with the AV. That's Anthony debating. I was always off camera. Those are my hands right there. But we had some good times, and Larry would sub. So we had 2 shows. One was called Millionaire Mindset for what we're doing today, expanding your mindset. The other one was called The Bleeping Truth, and that no one agreed on anything. So I had to go on vacation. I said, Larry, can you sub in for me on this show? So of course, Larry said, absolutely. I'll have a good time with Anthony and the boys. I'll sub in so you can talk about it.
I was asking the questions.
So what happened next?
Well, that show happened to get archived into the Library of Congress.
For whatever reason, the guest on that show is running for Senate, and they wanted to archive it in the Library of Congress. I had done 300 shows up to that point. The one that Larry substituted. He got into the Library of Congress. So we always joke about that. It was like, really? The one day I had to go on vacation.
Makes me proud. Anybody got a Kleenex for him? He's going to be starting to cry. No, that's when I say I'm in the Library of Congress, one of my shows is in the Library of Congress.
And it was a lot of fun. The other fun fact, if you recall this, is Larry would wear, and I wore this in honor of Larry, he would wear his red power tie. And after I was done, I wore a suit, but after I was done, I was 29 at the time, I'd wear khaki shorts and a t-shirt. So as far as I was concerned, no one was watching the shows because no one ever would ever say anything after. But he would go to like a McDonald's and people would ask for autographs, and I thought he was putting me on for months. But it turned out that he dressed the way he dressed on TV, off TV. Me, there was a disconnect. It was like, there's no way this kid is the guy on the TV with the suit that we saw. So it was always funny how...
Yeah, I was in McDonald's with Sharon Williams, and we're talking over business, and all of a sudden I hear this screaming voice, Mama, Mama, it's him, it's the guy on TV. And they come running up.
See, he would tell me this. How do you believe that that's really happening?
I thought I was getting attacked.
So Larry was a hot commodity and we had a lot of good times with the TV shows.
We sure did.
Now I have a picture of the Monday night meeting, and if anyone wants information, we'll put it up on the members forum. But it's just a really great meeting and a really great community.
Absolutely.
But Larry, and I'm going to take some questions from people. What like juices you with the education? What is it that you really get out of it? Because I know money is not a motivator for you, even though like investing is about making money, but it really isn't for you. It's about the relationships and helping people. Can you talk about what the juice for you is, why you do what you do?
Well, yeah, I love money, don't get me wrong, because when you grow up poor, you never want to be without it. I've been on both sides of the coin. I don't want to go back. So money is very important. But if it hadn't been for some of the wonderful people like Andy and Pete and some of the other mentors I've had that shared with me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And the older I get, the more I feel compelled. I want to help other people. I want to make them feel the way I felt when I had a success. And if you can spread that and share that with other people, it's one of the most wonderful feelings. And the money's nice, don't get me wrong. But when you know, I had one student come up and she came to my meeting and she threw her arms around my neck and started to sob. And I said, my God, honey, what's the matter? She said, remember we talked on the phone about a week ago and you told me what to do, and I did it. And she said, we're not going to lose our house now. It was just one little tip. Well, you can't put a price on the feeling you get when you change somebody's life. And that's what I'm enjoying right now, because I'm literally changing people's lives. I know I am. I get testimonials all the time. I had one student call me yesterday and say he bought a house. Now, he's of Cuban descent, lives in Louisville, Kentucky. He bought a house, sold it, same week, made $112,000. And it's all because he listens. He doesn't follow the path everyone else follows. Because if you do what everyone else does, you get about what everybody else gets. And that isn't always a lot.
Can you talk about how you start off your Monday meetings and the two ladies that came to hear it? Tell us that story.
Do I have to?
Yes, please. And no, don't leave any words out.
Every week I start the meeting, and this started the first week I did it. I say, this is an integrity-based meeting. If you're here to take advantage of someone or you're here to screw somebody, pick up your shit right now and get out, because you're not welcome here. I've said that every week. And one night, these two little blue-haired ladies come wandering in to the meeting. And they sat right next to where I was standing. And I thought, God, I don't want to say that in front of those ladies. And that's like my grandma. But I thought, well, might as well. So I did. And after I said it, this one lady went. After the meeting, they stayed the whole meeting. After the meeting, I went up and I apologized for cussing in front of them. I was raised with manners, believe it or not. And the one lady said, oh, no, we're not in real estate. We just heard you said that. We just wanted to hear you say it.
You almost deprived them of the highlight of why they came.
Yeah.
Now you have a love of your life. You have your wife, but you have another love of your life. You want to tell us who that is?
Punkin.
Yeah.
Punkin's my baby. There's my wife, and that's Punkin is a rescue. We got her one day before she was going to be put to sleep. Thanks. Punkin is Daddy's girl. Let there be no doubt in your mind. She's by my side constantly, but this is the love of my life right here. She's a wonderful person that helps me. I don't know where I'd be without her. She is that important in my life. She helps me so much doing the things that I don't want to do and I'm not good at. So, yeah, that's two of the loves of my life. The other 16, I got 6 kids, 16 grandkids, 2 great-grandkids. I love them too.
I love them too.
But I moved to Florida so they couldn't find me because they all want presents and stuff, you know? I keep moving so they can't come and want to stay with me.
So Joel has a question for you. He goes, what's your advice for instilling a work ethic on today's youth?
I think today everything is too instantaneous. We had to work for what we got. And when I remember I got a bicycle when I was 9 years old. And it was because of working on the farm, helping. And I cherished that bicycle. I still have that bicycle. But it was because I worked hard to get it. I took care of it. Today, I mean, I have a grandson that's 5 years old that has his own cell phone. Now, it's not active, but he can, you know, play games. And I think I just want to scream. You know, I was told once I'm a horrible father because I told someone that I wanted my kids to struggle. I didn't want it a lot better than what I had it. I want them to struggle. That way, when they do acquire something, they will appreciate it. And I was told I was a horrible dad. But all of my kids turned out good. They all are honorable people. They have good careers. And I'm very proud of them. So I think we need to take away all of the gadgets and the... I see people taking... I understand we want to take pictures of our children. I have no problem with that. But I see some people, that's all they do. Their kids get sick of posing.
Well, pretty much all kids know how to pose now.
My grandson, my daughter takes pictures, and he really struggles to smile because it's... If he breathes, oh, let's take a picture. That's so cute. All
right, so Larry, we got a lot of questions. So
okay.
Quick answers on this one. 2 questions. What would you do if you had to start all over again in real estate today? That's from Damon.
What would I do? I'd do the same thing that we do today. I would talk to sellers. I would. I'm not big on properties in the MLS. No offense to the real estate agents, but the reason I say that, let's think of a bowl. If you put all the properties for sale in that bowl, that's where everybody is looking, correct?
Correct.
If I can't find a good deal in there, which I don't think I can, as listed, if I can talk to the seller, I might be able to create a good deal for both of us. But just taking it at face value as it's listed, I don't think there's a good deal there. So I believe you get off your hind end, you get in the streets, you do some marketing, you find properties. I look for properties that the owners own them free and clear, and they do not live in them. Because they can make a deal. I can pay them off in bubble gum if they'll accept it for their property. It doesn't have to be you go get bank financing. I would rather pay the seller every month.
You could be creative.
I can be creative. I can trade a pickup truck for the down payment. I've done work to the property to fix it up as a down payment. See, there's nothing we can't do.
Okay, quick answers on these. Number 1 piece of advice you could give someone who wants to get involved in real estate but doesn't know where to start. Andrew wants to know. Maybe come to your Monday night meeting.
Come to the Monday night meeting.
That's probably one of the best places you could get started.
Here's the thing. If you think you're going to learn to be an investor by going to meetings, I think you're wrong. I think you go to meetings to network and make associations with other investors that you can do business with. But you have to have trainings. And Pete Fortunato, some of the other people, I do trainings, but we've got some of the best education as far as creative real estate deal structuring in the nation right here in Tampa. So that's what I would recommend.
Now, Larry, when you were looking at that golf magazine, Can you finish the story on the picture that you saw?
Yeah, my wife and I moved to Crystal Beach, and we were looking for something in that area. And we left our house and we took a different way out of Crystal Beach because it's one way in, one way out. But we took a different route leaving there. And all of a sudden, I look, here's this big sign. It says Innisbrook Country Club. That's what the picture in the magazine was.
Isn't that amazing? Talk about manifesting.
And I said, I just stopped. And my wife said, you got to go in. So I went in, I talked to him. The golf membership was $40,000. So I scrapped that. But we got the social membership for $1,500, and we were there 2 or 3 years, and we'd go to dinner. They got 3 beautiful restaurants, and you can get some real good buys on golf shirts too when they sell them out of the clubhouse. But that's one of the reasons I believe I'm supposed to be here. See, I believe in that. Wayne Dyer made me believe in that. I'm here because it took all my yesterdays to put me where I am today, and whatever comes into my life is supposed to be there. I believe it now with all my heart.
That's a pretty powerful lesson.
It is, well, it's the truth, and I believe it.
We're getting questions about, Tyler Chef wants to know what your favorite podcast is.
My favorite podcast is probably the one I did with Tyler Chef.
So you actually have launched a podcast now.
I have launched a podcast.
Thank you, Tyler, for helping him with that.
Yes, Tyler is gracious enough to let me use his studio and recorded, we got about a dozen in the can. We've got 3 released. If anybody's interested, you can go to LarryHarbolt.com and click on the podcast button. What else? iTunes.
Just look up your name on iTunes; it'll show
Yeah.
up.
And I like to give out a lot of information. It's not fluff. It's not BS. It's stuff that people can use.
So, Larry, the last question is: someone's asking if they could come to the Monday night meeting just to be inspired by you, even if their business has nothing to do with real estate.
Can they?
And they're asking.
Of course. Everybody's welcome at that meeting. I don't care who you are. If you're trying to better your life and give your family a better existence, you're always welcome at my meeting. And our friend Pete Fortunato says, if you have thin skin, it's no place for you. See, everybody there's my family. I hate my family, so I abuse everyone. No, we're like a family. If you want to come to that meeting, you show up, you'll be treated as good as anybody could be treated. We're there because we all want to have a better life and do better. And so I welcome anybody that wants to come.
I want to thank you for helping me found TBBO and creating another integrity-based meeting.
But that was such a pleasure.
It goes both ways. You didn't have to help me when I asked you for help. So I want to thank you for being a main event speaker and sharing your story. I didn't know when we were doing the pre-interview that you literally left everything you knew and just drove south and you literally just left. Other people plan, or they say, oh, we left in a hurry, a month, 2 months later. You literally, the next day you quit, could have retired, done all kinds of stuff after 30 years, and then started a new life.
My wife told me that the day she decided to join me is because she feared for my life. No, because I was so despondent. I was so depressed. I was so done with it.
You were in a dark place when you made that
decision. I was in a very dark
right.
place. That's why she packed the bags, she got in the car, and we left, and we've been together ever since.
And it's not, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say you've probably had 25 to 30,000 people pass through your doors on Monday night meetings, and you've probably spoken in front of a few 100,000 people. So thank you for being my Uncle Larry, for being our Uncle Larry. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for sharing your story.
I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.